two friends, blinded by arrogance, laughed at ancient warnings and dared to cross the forbidden trail. Deep in the frozen mountains, an ancient tribe awaited, and for one of them, the price would be a fate far worse than death. It all started in a dusty village tucked into the base of the Himalayas, the kind of place travelers passed through without a second thought. Daniel, Moore and Ethan Cross leaned against a crumbling stone wall, laughing over stories they'd heard about a cursed trail hidden deep in the mountains. Daniel, 24, fearless to the point of foolishness, loved nothing more than chasing legends. Every scar on his body had a story, and he wore them like trophies. Ethan was the quieter one, the balance to Daniel's chaos. Careful, a little skeptical, but always ready to follow his best friend into whatever madness he dreamed up next. While they joked about ghost tribes and haunted paths, a wiry old man wandered over, chuckling to himself. His skin was leathered from the sun, his hands calloused from work. "You boys thinking about the trails up north?" he asked with a crooked grin. "Careful where you step. Some paths don't like to be found." He wasn't spooky or threatening, just a friendly local tossing out advice like a grandfather warning kids not to play too close to the river. Daniel winked at Ethan. "Come on, man, what's life without a little danger?" Daniel wasn't much for careful planning. After all, it was just a hike, right? He tossed a few clothes into a battered backpack, jeans, a hoodie, a couple of energy bars, and one crumpled map he bought from a vendor who looked like he hadn't seen a trail in decades. Ethan packed a little better, a thermos, a first aid kit, a handful of fire starters, but nothing close to what the mountains demanded. They laughed off warnings about the winter closing in. The skies were clear, the air crisp, perfect hiking weather. No way a little snow would slow them down. "Besides," Daniel said, slinging his bag over his shoulder, "we're not climbing Everest. We're just walking." It was the kind of blind confidence that feels invincible in the warmth of a village morning, but would mean something very different once they were alone, swallowed by the peaks. Their supplies could barely last 2 days if things went wrong. No backup radios, no satellite phone, not even enough food for an unexpected delay. But to them, it wasn't about survival, it was about the thrill of proving the stories wrong. As they waved goodbye to the villagers, Ethan caught the old man's eye. The villager gave a small shake of his head, almost sad. Ethan hesitated, just for a second. But when Daniel clapped him on the back, grinning, Ethan pushed the doubt aside. The mountains were waiting. And so was something else. At first, the trail was easy. It twisted up lazy hills, dipped into frozen valleys, and cut through forests so quiet that even their footsteps sounded too loud. Daniel led the way, map flapping uselessly in the wind, while Ethan followed, still shaking off that tiny seed of doubt the old man had planted. By noon, the path began to change. Markers that once stood tall, cairns, broken wooden signs, even worn-out footprints, seemed to vanish one by one. The land blurred into endless sheets of white and gray, where every rock and tree looked exactly like the last. It was like walking into a painting that kept erasing itself behind them. "Pretty sure we're still good," Daniel said, even though his voice had lost a little of its usual swagger. Ethan wasn't so sure. He marked a broken branch with a strip of his scarf, only to glance back 5 minutes later and find it gone, nothing but untouched snow in every direction. Maybe the wind tore it off, or maybe they were already somewhere they weren't supposed to be. The temperature dropped without warning. Each breath came out in heavy puffs, and the sky turned a sickly shade of gray. Daniel shrugged it off, cracking jokes about cursed trails and ancient spirits. Ethan laughed too, but it was thinner this time, hollow. Somewhere up ahead, the trail forked in two. Neither direction looked right. Neither one felt safe. And somewhere, hidden in the swirling snow, something was watching. The storm didn't roll in like a normal storm, it slammed into the mountains like a living thing. One moment the world was quiet, the next, a wall of white swallowed everything. Snow whipped across their faces, blinding and stinging like tiny knives. Daniel and Ethan shouted over the wind, but their voices were torn away before they could even reach each other. Panic flickered for the first time. "Stick close!" Daniel yelled, but all Ethan saw was a flash of Daniel's jacket disappearing into the curtain of snow. Ethan stumbled forward, heart pounding. Shapes twisted in the blizzard, trees, rocks, maybe shadows. He couldn't tell anymore. He called Daniel's name again and again, but the wind mocked him, throwing back whispers that didn't belong to either of them. Minutes stretched into hours. Or maybe it was just seconds. Time didn't work right in that storm. Somewhere in the white abyss, a scream cracked through the air. Ethan froze. Was it Daniel? Was it something else? He ran toward the sound, boots sinking deep into drifts. But when he reached the spot, there was nothing. No tracks, no jacket, no friend. Just endless snow, and a growing certainty gnawing at his gut. He wasn't alone anymore. But whatever was out there wasn't trying to help. By nightfall, Ethan's body was running on fumes. His legs ached, and his breath came out in desperate, ragged bursts. The storm had eased just enough to reveal a rocky outcrop, a low, crooked cave barely big enough to crawl into. It wasn't much, but it was shelter, or at least, it looked like it. He dropped his pack inside and collapsed, trying to rub feeling back into his frozen fingers. As the wind howled outside, Ethan wrapped himself in his jacket and tried to convince himself he'd find Daniel at first light. Maybe he made it to another lodge. Maybe he was waiting. Sleep didn't come easy. Every time he closed his eyes, the darkness behind his eyelids twisted into something worse. He dreamed of faces, painted white, with empty black holes for eyes, staring from the mouth of the cave. Hands reaching through the shadows. Low, guttural chants that seemed to vibrate the very stones. When he jerked awake, heart hammering, the cave was empty. At least, he thought it was. But outside. Footprints. Fresh. Small, barefoot prints circling the entrance, almost taunting him. He wasn't dreaming anymore. And whoever had been out there, they hadn't finished what they started. The morning was colder than any Ethan had ever known. Not just in temperature, but in silence, the kind of silence that presses against your chest like weight. He stepped out from the cave, boots crunching through a fresh layer of snow, and saw them again. The footprints. Dozens of them now, circling not just the cave, but weaving symbols into the snow. He followed the markings a few steps before stopping dead. A wooden totem stood at the base of a tree. Twigs, animal bones, feathers, all bound together with sinew and strips of red cloth. Around it, hanging from the branches like ornaments, were small dolls made from moss and hair. Their heads tilted downward. All of them facing the cave. The air felt heavier. Thicker. He turned back, but now the path to the cave looked different. Trees he didn't remember. A formation of rocks that hadn't been there the night before. Like the forest had shifted behind his back. A sound stopped him. Drums. Not loud, not close, just distant enough to be real. A slow, steady rhythm. One he couldn't quite tell if he heard with his ears, or just inside his skull. He wasn't lost anymore. Not in the normal sense. He had been found. Ethan followed the rhythmic thump of the drums like a moth chasing a dying flame. Each step through the snow seemed heavier, harder, as if something under the surface was pulling at his legs. The forest thinned, revealing a clearing, and what he saw there snapped the last thread of reason holding him together. Figures circled a bonfire, their bodies caked in mud and ash. Their faces were painted in grotesque patterns of red and white, hollow black eyes staring blankly through the swirling smoke. Some wore animal pelts, others nothing at all but twisted necklaces made of bones. Their chants were low, guttural, almost inhuman. But it wasn't just the tribe that froze Ethan in place. Strapped to a crude wooden altar at the center of the clearing, was Daniel. Or what was left of him. At first, Ethan thought he was dead. His skin was pale, his clothes ripped and bloodied. Then, Daniel's head moved, just slightly, lifting toward the sky, mouth opening in a silent, broken scream. The tribe raised their arms in unison, swaying, as if answering some unseen signal. And for a heartbeat, Ethan locked eyes with Daniel. Despair. Horror. Recognition. Then, nothing. Ethan stumbled back, bile rising in his throat. He hadn't just lost his friend to the storm. He had delivered him into something much worse. And they had seen him now. Ethan ran. He didn't know which way, only that he had to move, had to get away from the clearing, from the chanting, from Daniel's hollow gaze. The forest twisted around him, the trees looming taller, the snow thicker. Every direction looked the same, and every breath burned his throat. After what felt like hours, he collapsed against a tree, gasping. But when he tried to remember why he was running, his mind faltered. His heart pounded in terror, but terror of what? He squeezed his eyes shut, trying to focus. A name. Daniel. The image of his friend flashed in his mind, then blurred, slipping away like smoke between his fingers. Panic gripped him. He dug into his pack, pulling out a photo they'd taken in the village. It was faded now, almost blank. Only vague outlines remained where two friends had once smiled at the edge of the world. The drums echoed faintly behind him, slower now, like a heartbeat syncing with his own. Every minute, another piece of himself chipped away, memories, names, reasons. He wasn't just lost in the mountains. The mountains were eating him alive from the inside out. And somewhere deep inside, he understood. If he forgot who he was, he would become one of them. Ethan staggered forward, dragging his feet through drifts that felt like quicksand. His mind was slipping faster now, basic thoughts tangled, memories folding in on themselves. He couldn't even remember where he was headed, only that he had to move. Move or die. Maybe worse than die. Shadows flickered between the trees. Low whispers rode the wind, voices that sounded familiar. Daniel's voice. His mother's voice. Laughter he hadn't heard since childhood. They called to him, sweet and gentle, pulling at the tattered strings of his mind. He stumbled, fell, ripped open his hand on a hidden rock. Warm blood bloomed against the freezing snow. The pain shocked a flash of clarity through him. Real. This was real. He gritted his teeth and pushed himself up. Behind him, he heard the footsteps, soft, barefoot, dozens of them, closing the distance. They weren't running. They didn't need to. They knew he wouldn't get far. The forest twisted into a nightmare maze. No path, no direction. Just endless white and gray and the pounding drum of his own heart. He ran blindly, crashing through frozen branches, scraping his arms and legs raw, leaving a trail of blood in his wake. But it didn't matter how fast he ran. Because some hunts were never meant to end. They found him at dawn. Or maybe he found them. Ethan's body gave out just as the forest broke open into another clearing. The snow here was cleaner, untouched, almost serene, like a canvas waiting for a new story to be painted in blood. Figures emerged from the mist, moving with eerie calmness. The same painted faces, the same hollow eyes. But among them, stepping forward with a familiar, easy smile, was the old man from the village. His tattered cloak fluttered around him like withered wings. He wasn't hunched now, he stood tall, strong, his eyes sharp with something far colder than age. "Didn't I tell you to be careful?" he said, his voice warm, almost laughing, like a grandfather joking over a meal. The tribe parted as he walked through them, approaching Ethan's broken body with the casual stroll of a man greeting an old friend. Ethan tried to speak. Tried to remember why the sight of this man filled him with such blinding terror. But there was nothing left inside him now but the echo of forgotten names. The elder knelt beside him, whispering words in a language Ethan's mind no longer understood. Hands lifted him, carried him back toward the trees, back toward the whispering drums. Behind them, the trail smoothed over, erasing every footprint, every memory, every scream. Because the mountains didn't just hide the past. They collected it. Survive the whispering peaks? Like, subscribe, and comment before they find you too.